We're here to talk about Mirror's Edge Catalyst, a sequel, prequel type effort, reimagining, long time in the making. I mean, Mirror's Edge feels like, you know, that's an early Xbox 360 game. That's a game that's been around for a long time. I played a bit of it on PC earlier.
I saw that.
It still looks all right.
It does.
But what we were playing over the weekend was the beta for Catalyst, which I was playing on Xbox One. Where were you playing on?
PS4.
You were playing PS4. Mike,
right.
You didn't play, did you?
I didn't get a chance to play it yet.
You have played Mirror's Edges in the past.
Oh, yeah.
You've been on a Mirror's Edge or two.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's kind of chew into it. I feel like I'm a big fan of the first Mirror's Edge. What about yourself? Do you like
I actually never played it.
Okay, that's actually perfect, right?
Right.
Sort of way of coming into this. So I came in with sort of like rather lofty expectations of what I would like from this game. And I feel like I've kind of gone a bit all over the place with it. And I'm still not really sure exactly where I land. You coming in fresh into it, playing on PlayStation 4, what did you think, Catalyst?
I really enjoyed it. If I could make any comparison, I'd say like off the bat, as far as parkour games, I played like Dying Light, and that's a little reminiscent as far as like the feel and, you know, doing cool moves. I thought the parkour in this game was spectacular. I didn't have any issues, maybe gripes, not at all. Like it was a really fun experience. I enjoyed it. It's a cool city. At first, I was a little. Actually, I went two ways. First, I was like, oh, this is a really bland world, looks like an Apple store.
Right.
and then I was like, oh, this is actually more of a cool environment. I like the setup. It's, you know, this utopian city.
Yeah.
It gave me a lot of like Equilibrium vibes, you know,
Right.
with like what, you know,
Yeah.
these guys are trying to, you know, basically put down people, like no emotions from you, you know, like
1984 or something.
And then you did some
Sure.
gun kate or whatever the hell it's called.
Gunkata.
Gunkata.
Yeah. Grammaton clerics.
and then I had a third wind of this is getting a little boring.
Right.
Looking at like a room, and it's just these glasses that I don't know, like the glasses on a table, and it looks like just crap.
Yeah, none of this looks...
It just doesn't look that great, and it gets boring. And you walk into a room, and it's like just blocks, and that got old for me.
It's a weird sort of dystopian utopia. I guess for people who haven't played the original, or people who have played the original don't know what this is about. Basically what they've done with Mirror's Edge is it's now in a sort of open world, and I mean open world is maybe a bit of a stretch. It's just a large area, like a large level, which I'm sure opens up even bigger when you get into beta. And then the biggest problem that was with Mirror's Edge, the first one, or the biggest criticism, which most players and reviewers had, was that the gun combat in that game was like a big issue. Like you had the option to shoot people, or you could keep running in the first game. And then later on in the first game, there were like 2 or 3 levels that were at the end of the game, which was essentially were forced to use a gun, and it didn't work well. Even though this was the same studio who's made Battlefield, of course, DICE. So what they've done in this is that they've basically made it so most of the lower level enemies that you encounter only use truncheons. So they only use batons basically to beat you down. And the main mechanic that they've added, like most of the running is almost identical to Mirror's Edge. They've added a bunch of like extra types of movement and whatnot. Most of it seems to be around the combat, like jumping off walls to take people down, or jumping off walls and pushing people out of the way. They've sort of split the combat in 2 ways. One is like I'm hitting them to get past them. It's like a traversal attack. And then the other one is like a heavy attack, which is, oh, I'm actually trying to kill this person.
Right.
But they sort of push you in the direction of not trying to kill everyone, because there's this flow meter, which you build up the more you run.
So there are people who shoot you
Yes.
later on, and that's, they call it dodge shield.
Yeah.
So later on, you will get guys shooting at you, and the idea is have that meter filled in order to have that like secondary shield against bullets, and then use your parkour to like take them out or whatever.
Which is cool, right? It's like if you build up enough flow, then basically you can dodge bullets, and that's kind of like a cool, conceit.
Yeah,
in
it's
a game
fun.
like this.
I got different takes on they would implement it like different ways, right? Like here's point A, point B. Don't fight anyone.
Yeah.
Like these were mission elements, and another one would be like, you actually got to fight these guys. So it was a mixture of both, I guess.
And you can if you want, you can like engage in the fight and knock down somebody, or knock them into
someone else,
another person, or get them close to the edge of a corner and then knock them off. And what it kind of reminded me of is that I really like using like melee weapons in games like Skyrim or Oblivion, but there are some people who will not touch that, who will never play a melee build in one of those games. And first-person melee combat is like such an incredibly difficult thing to do right, and I think they've kind of done a pretty good job of it. but at the end of the day, it's just never that compelling. Like, I was sort of using and putting most of my tech stuff into my movement and not necessarily my combat stuff to basically get rid of them. And then there's this, and this is the sort of stuff that's like weird for a beta, right? Because you don't really know how. This is pretty close to release. They pushed it back, I think, to like a week before E3 or something like that now. But it's coming out pretty soon. So some of this stuff, I'm not sure if it's fair to lay on it because it is a beta. One, this game does not look great.
No, I know.
And the first game, when it came out on the Xbox 360, it was very striking. It was linear, so then there's that whole thing, if you have a game that is relatively, boxed in, then you can add more visually striking elements to it because you're not worried about people going outside and having to load more stuff or whatever. I don't know how games work. That obviously doesn't exist in this one. The other thing is that like the original game felt very cinematic, like this sort of like weird future Luc Besson type world that's kind of crazy and like you said, like looks like an Apple store, but you kind of like, it's like a linear weird story.
Right.
I'm on it. When you spread that out into an open world, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, why is everything so clean? Why is everyone so idealistic? Why are none of these characters in any way believable? But like the mission people were just standing around on rooftops, and if they're not willing to give you the mission, they literally just stand there.
Yeah.
Like I saw somebody who was standing there on a rooftop. On a fucking rooftop. Like, by the way, just like 15 stories up or something on a rooftop. And I'm like, why are you standing here? And like, they don't do anything. And then later on, they're a mission giver, but they were there the whole time.
Or how about there was one guy who I did a mission for, and I gave him the whatever, and then he's still standing there.
Yeah, he's standing
after I did his mission. He's just hanging out. And he doesn't talk to you. He's just.
Yeah. Also, that mission was the weirdest voiceover I've. Like, person gives you something to give to somebody. Instead of using a courier system, they're using you because of this sort of political reason. And then when you run away from her, she's talking to you in your ear. And I'm like, how are you talking? Like, I'm sure there's some future, it's a good thing we invented the squabble blah, so everyone can like talk to each other. But like, there's just so much of that. There's no consistency to the world. It didn't feel real. I thought Fate's VO was really not great at all.
So I thought the voice acting in the cinematics was actually top notch. I was really into that. That's just me.
Right.
But yeah, you can get into her character. But I have to say one thing. There was an area when I was doing. You can do side missions like go hack this billboard, and I'm climbing on this area, and I'm like, oh, there's people in this room. Oh, I'm looking in. Jake Decker and I did the live stream. Of the 12 people in this room, 4 of them are exactly the same. On the phone, in a line, like 3 people in a line, all the same. That's a bummer, and hopefully that's not present. There's another scene where I was looking down in between 2 buildings, and a drone. Did you look at the drones flying by?
Right.
Some of them, literally, their fans are just triangles.
Right. Yeah.
That's frightening to me.
Like, I bet this game will look a lot better on PC. And the weird thing about it is this game, when you stream it on the internet, looks really good. It like has the opposite effect of Far Cry Primal.
Just like
right, the compression,
all,
the compression helps it.
Yeah.
Whereas with the added detail you have on your own home television, there's just something about it looks so edgy in like a not very sort of a pleasing type way. And like, that's just not you and me. Like, I've heard that across the board from a lot of people who've played it, is that it doesn't look super, I don't know. To me, this feels so much like Mirror's Edge 1 in like all the right ways and all the wrong ways. And that like the traversal is very, very identical. The unlock system is like, they're like petering out bits and bobs to you because I feel like they're trying to teach you how to do this whole combat thing. But it feels like an open world game that also was made in 2007. It doesn't feel like a real fleshed out world to me at all.
Did you look at the skill tree? Like the one they blocked off about half of what the skill tree is.
Yeah.
I think maybe there's
more.
more.
Like 3. There's like movement, combat, and something else.
Gear.
Okay.
If you look down on some of like the combat ones, some of like the trees are just damage. More damage.
Yeah,
more damage. Or I don't know. Where are these? I was looking through them. Like, where are the moves? I expect something along the lines of that, and it's not just like damage against these guys. And
the thing that was like pushing you forward in the first Mirror's Edge, and again, this is difficult to levy this criticism on a beta, but the thing that was like was the fact that this is a linear story-based game, and you were going into new environments, which was always sort of the fun element was like, oh, this next level is going to look beautiful in a new way, or like there was the level you had to like go down in the circle,
in the underground,
and do all that, and then there was like loads of like sort of sewery type levels and stuff like that. And I don't know, I've been treading a lot of common ground in this game like over and over again, and I don't like, even if they do mix it up, I don't know that the next area is going to be interesting.
Right.
So the thing that's like that they're trying to like push you forward with the unlocks and all that, that's not compelling enough for me to keep playing. I found like I once I just went, you know what, I like exploring open world games. I'm just going to go on and explore. And I went la 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 la, and I'm like, one of the things that one of my biggest criticisms of Watch Dogs is that you could be anywhere in Watch Dogs, and if somebody asked you to go back to your house, you wouldn't have a clue. Like, it just, nothing about the world, like a game like GTA, you kind of have an idea, right? There's like landmarks.
I know the
and
street.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
The streets look different.
Yeah, you have a sense of the place. You're actually taking in the place. Mirror's Edge Catalyst to me was just like, I'm running, it could be, I don't know where I am. And I ran to like and I played for like 3 hours or something, and in a relatively small area, it's not that big. And I ran to the furthest reach of it to be like, oh, where does the map stop? And it was this concourse that was about like 6 lanes wide was the way they split you off in the city. And I just felt, I want to go there, or I want to go down there, or I want to go, I'm just stuck on the roofs, and it feels really weird.
Even your main, I mean, again, this is beta, right? I don't know what's going to be either in for stores, but your main hub, it seemed like there were only 2 ways of exiting.
Yeah.
In that you were going down lanes that over time got repetitive.
Yeah.
Like I'm hoping there are, I mean, you know, I only played for like 4 or 5 hours, but like I hope there are lanes that you can start, you know, making up your own, like more of that. Like, because when you initially leave, it's just it's like the same route. I've done this route before, and I don't know. I hope
like the same 30 seconds both ways is identical.
Exactly.
And I feel like if you haven't played a game like Dying Light, maybe you come off this completely different. If you haven't played a lot of like first-person open world games which have like half-decent traversal. Like I even think like Far Cry Primal to me is a game that's a fun game about exploring a world and trying to like, you know, I don't know, like I enjoy the movement in that game and like the combat in that game far more than I enjoy the movement and combat in this. And this is fine, but like, and then I just feel like with Dying Light, especially, you've got a game that does parkour pretty well, does combat shooting really good, and it even does driving in the new one really good. So to me, this game just feels like, oh, you've made a sequel to a game which at the time was doing a lot of new things, but in 2016 isn't doing anything new. So I don't know where they had room to grow.
And even Dying Light, sorry to interrupt, at nighttime, you have a crazy threat in this environment. There's practically no NPCs.
Yeah.
There's no real threat. You get the K-Sec guys, but in that playthrough of the beta, there were only these like outpost security points.
Yeah.
Where you would go into one of those and then you would engage them, and then you'd have this chase. It'd be cool if there was more of a chase. It'd be cool if it was so unexpected. They're onto you now. Now you have, 2 stars, GTA. Okay, cool. Now I have to change up my way of playing.
Yeah, if you're just wandering around mid-mission, like I wandered around mid-mission for probably about an hour last night, maybe 45 minutes, and didn't run into any of them. They're not just they're only in missions. Yeah. So it seems very strange.
Yeah, it's tough. It feels like a tough game, the first Mirror's Edge, to make a sequel to, right? Because it's just, the thing I loved about it was linear, but there were still alternate routes you could take through that world. The traversal felt good, and I like that they didn't force weapons on you for the majority of the game. But at the same time, I think we're past the point where we need to stop just throwing open world onto a game just for the sake of saying that's a feature, because, like Far Cry Primal is a good example. I think that game made awesome use of its open world. That's what I'm worried about with Catalyst. It doesn't look like it's going to yet. I have not touched the beta, so I don't know. But that's why I'm tempering my expectations when it does release.
And I think that's probably what we're doing, is like trying to temper. I'm not saying this is bad. It was fine. I enjoyed it too. But it's not. It's not the feeling you got when you played Mirror's Edge 1. It feels, and this is a beta, and like people in the chat are making good points. Like, CBW86 is saying the map of the beta is one district of around 3 or 4, and there's an underground area too.
Sure.
So I'm sure it does expand.
Sure.
But like, you can gain a certain amount of knowledge from the loop that they give you in these things, and that's the sort of come up that I'm getting from this, is that like, okay, I know what game you are, and it's like, that's fine.
I'm just worried, like, will the open world aspect kill what I liked about the first game? Because I know you need to do something different with a sequel enough to set it apart, but will the open world sacrifice what makes that parkour so intriguing to me?
Yeah. Like the time trial-y stuff that was in Mirror's Edge 1, like I didn't touch at all. I just like the single player. But like that's a lot of what the side missions in this seems to be. It's very like point-to-point races.
And they're not that different?
No.
There's a dash, and then there's a... shoot. There's another one.
There's the ones where you're getting the security chips as well, which essentially is just an elongated version of a point-to-point. It's a point-to-point, but there's 4 points. You know what I mean? So they feel very similar. It's like, instead of going to the checkered flag, I'm just hitting X at a box, you know?
And some of them are, I mean, both are essentially do this as fast as you can. It's the same, you're getting the same drive. One of them is just like, if you can't do it in 2 minutes, you got to do it again.
Yeah.
Or you're doing a race, it's like, oh, well, you get 1 star. Come back again if you want to, get 2 stars.
And there's probably some cool stuff where like you unlock new abilities and then you figure out faster routes of doing these things.
Yeah.
But you're just still doing point-to-point races. Like that's like the one side mission that the open world games have tried to get rid of for the past 5 years. So yeah, it seems a little bit weird. I don't know. Huh. Mirror's Edge, Catalyst. It's fine, right?
I did like it. I enjoyed it.
I was really down on it for the first like couple hours, and then I think when I started going out, I think then when I had the expectation of what it was and I messed around a little bit more, I was kind of like, yeah, it's I guess Mirror's Edge. So I guess I'll find out more soon. That was the sort of smaller beta they've done. I'm not sure if they're opening it up to any more. It's been pushed back though a little while, so you're going to have to wait and see to get your own Catalyst on. Let us know what you think. Are you excited for it? Are you tempering expectations? Did you not play the first one and you're looking to get into it? Let us know if you've played Dying Light as well. I think it's a good game to compare it with. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on.